Hello, everyone. My name is Shay, and I work for the Canadian Drug Policy Canadian Drug Policy Coalition, and I'm the Stimulus Program Coordinator. I'm going to hand this off to Sophie so she can talk about simultaneous interpretation.
All right, thank you, Shay. Hello, everyone. I'll start by presenting in French, and then I'll repeat in English. Alors, bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à cette rencontre. Moi, je suis ici donc pour offrir une interprétation simultanée pendant la rencontre, en fait dans les deux langues. Vous pouvez, je le fais à l'écrit, alors vous pouvez activer les sous-titres en bas de l'écran en cliquant sur sous-titres ou CC. Ça va vous permettre d'afficher les sous-titres ou d'ouvrir une fenêtre à droite de votre écran où vous allez pouvoir voir la transcription intégrale. Idéalement, c'est bien d'activer les deux si possible. Si vous êtes sur un téléphone, vous pouvez le faire à partir de vos paramètres. Si jamais vous voulez poser des questions en français, vous pouvez le faire et je vais traduire à l'anglais pour le groupe. Alors, bonne rencontre! Hi, everyone. I'm here to offer simultaneous interpretation during the meeting so that everyone can participate in the language of their choice. We might have some interventions and questions in French and in English. So I offer written interpretation. So you can activate that by clicking on CC subtitles at the bottom of the screen. This will allow you to activate the subtitles or turn them off. And also to see the full transcript in a window on the right side of your screen. If you're on a computer, if you're on a phone, then you can activate the closed captioning in your parameters. And that's it. People can participate in the language of their choice, and just a friendly reminder to everyone who's participating not to speak too fast so that I can keep up. Have a nice meeting.
Thanks, Sophie. I've often thought we need like a sign, some sort of sign that says, here we are, settle down. I want to recognize now that the land that we live on from coast to coast to coast. I want us to take a moment to recognize this land, our land that we live, work, and play on, and our connection to it. So I'm going to take a moment for you all to reflect. Thanks. As you know, we are all treaty people. So welcome to My Safe Supply. This is a Stimulus Connect. It is our fifth, and we learn with everyone. Today, we're in the awesome place where this little like 2-sentence motto of our Stimulus Connect, and I'm going to read it to you, really makes a lot of sense today. It's called patience, kindness, and humor. So bringing people together to meet and engage in new ways and with sometimes unstable technology will not go without hiccups. Digitally mediated activities already put distance between us. Please join us in creating a safe space. So we started just sort of connecting a few minutes ago in preparation for this event, and none of us could see each other. It was super tricky. So some housekeeping things for those of you who are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or any other social media. We're using the hashtag Stimulus Connect. If you have any questions for the panelists, there is a Q&A box. So if you're on a full screen computer, the Q&A box is at the bottom, and you can actually just open that up and it'll ask you to type in your question. Once the questions are there, you can actually upvote them. So if you really like a question that Jordan from the Canadian Association for Safe Supply asks, you can like checkmark it like it's liking on Facebook. We are going to answer the questions after the panelists. Chat is for chatting, and let me hand over to Erin so she can introduce herself.
Hi everybody, my name is Erin. I am a research associate at Canadian Drug Policy Coalition. We're currently doing a national multi-province research about participation in safe supply for people who use drugs and frontline workers. I'm here to support the Stimulus Connect today by helping manage the chat and fielding everybody's questions and making sure that if you do have a question, it can go into the question and answer, and we'll use the chat for the space of dialogue and conversation in written format. If you have any questions, just come, and I'll be monitoring the chat, so you can feel free just to say Aaron, and I'll key right into you.
Right. So in the background here, we understand that people are having a hard time getting in, some of them, but it's no worries. I've sent along that link to Scott and Nat and anybody else can forward that on to anybody who's trying to get in, that is connecting with them. This is part of those hiccups that happen. As you know, this event is being recorded and we're going to put it on the Stimulus Connect website probably early next week. Right now, the Stimulus Connect website, and I bet you Aaron's going to put the link in there, but it has 38 resources so far. 37 of them are Canadian. So there's journal articles, there's news articles, there's lots of great stuff. I want to welcome some special folks. We have registrations and people joining us from Masset on Haida Gwaii. We have people from the PAW in Manitoba and from Amherst in Nova Scotia. Internationally, we have folks from Ireland, the USA, Colombia, and Nigeria. I want to say special thanks out to the folks who work in health departments, because we have municipal, provincial, and federal health department folks here today, so no pressure. Most importantly, I want to thank the folks who use drugs that are on our panel today. On that note, we have had some last-minute cancellations related to panelists. So we're actually going to pull on the resources from this room to engage folks. So, and in fact, there's some people I've already mentioned that I might check in with. And welcome to Stimulus Connect. Stimulus program is based in the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition and functions within a collaborative partnership that includes the Canadian Association of People Who Use Drugs and AIDQ. There's an awesome person from AIDQ here. Her name is Julie Soleil. And Julie, do you want to explain why you're here and also introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Julie Soleil. I work at l'Association des intervenants en dépendance du Québec. I will be helping out specifically more in the French part. So, si vous avez, I'm going to just say it in French. Si vous avez des questions ou quoi que ce soit, mettez-les dans le chat, dans les questions. Je vais les traduire. Je vais aider Sophie dans cet élément-là. Donc, sentez-vous bien à l'aise de poser vos questions en français. On est là pour vous dans notre langue maternelle, le français. Donc, I was just saying that anybody can ask in their main language a French question, and I will take care of it, and I'll do the relay between me and Sophie. So that's why I'm here today, to help out on that side of things. And whatever little technical stuff that happens, as we know.
Yes, I woke up this morning with an hour and a half of no power in the house, so I had to make contingency plans around going somewhere else, and where else in my community is there power. This Stimulus Connect is called My Safe Supply. As we've mentioned on some of our written material, Canada is experiencing the worst ever overdose poisoning epidemic in our country's history. Over 70% of overdose deaths are related to highly concentrated fentanyl in the unregulated and toxic drug market. Access to a safe supply of drugs is urgently needed. Building on previous webinars and discussions, today we are going to talk about how people who use drugs want safe supply delivered. So on that note, I'm going to introduce you to Ben. And before I hand over the reins to Ben, I will say that all of our panelists today are are folks who are using drugs. And because they may or may not have access to safe supply, they are all anonymous. And the reason for that is really we want them to feel comfortable in participating, but also participating in a way that doesn't put their access to safe supply or possible access to safe supply at risk. So we're going to hand over to Ben right now, and welcome, Ben. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm a Capud member from Toronto, Ontario. I'm going to preface my whole everything I'm going to say by saying that I'm currently a user of fentanyl who, as Shay pointed out, like so many others, has been unable to, as of yet, to actually get on a safe supply program, despite having tried, calling some doctors and calling, whatever safe supply options we have available, or have popped up in Toronto so far. And I'm still trying to access it. And I know that there's many others, who are in the same boat as me and who would very much like the chance, at least, to participate in a safe supply program. So like I said, I'm a Capud member from Toronto, Ontario. So here we go. Hello, my name is Ben and I'm an addict, or at least this is how I had to think of myself when trying to access any service, whether it be NA, AA, rehab, or methadone. The paradigm that has existed for so long, this paradigm has existed for so long, and while I'm indeed an addict, that is not all I am. The opportunity to get on safe supply provides a glimpse of hope and an opportunity to regain a level of freedom and dignity, which for so many years and in so many situations has been stripped from myself and others. For me to talk about what I want and don't want in a safe supply program, or my experiences trying to access safe supply, I think it's important that I first talk about what got me here and my experiences. This is to provide context as to what safe supply could mean to me. About 20 years ago, I began using heroin by injection, and for years struggled with all the issues which so many of you are so familiar with. It impacted my family and social life, caused me to live in perpetual fear, as well as wasting so much time and so much money finding that next fix. Had I had access to an effective safe supply program at this time, things could have been so different. Unfortunately, as I did not have access to safe supply at the time, I tried some other things, specifically methadone, rehab, and meetings. Without going into too much detail, when trying to, when being on methadone or when going to rehab for, a few stints of, 6 months each, and or even, meetings, all of these were helpful on some level, but regardless, I failed, can supplement my use or relapsed. While all these programs have their place in the world of drug addiction, in my opinion, they are not without serious issues, many of which have resulted in their not working for me. For example, methadone, where do I start? Methadone has been problematic for me and so many people. And I know for so many reasons which are well documented. The humiliation, the inconvenience, the treatment at the lowest level of patient from so many pharmacists and methadone doctors. I know so many others can relate to the feeling of going into a methadone clinic and being the last person to be served, of having to access a separate counter where everyone can see you drinking some funny substance, and or having every single other patient served first, while you have to sit there and wait for whenever this pharmacist decides to serve you. I've even been in there by myself when there's no other patients and just sat there for like 20-30 minutes with my mom coming in from outside being like, what the hell's going on here, while some pharmacist just sat at the computer, because we're not treated like regular patients with the normal kind of respect and rights that a regular patient receives. And the same goes for, when dealing with methadone doctors, or even being at the hospital receiving medical attention for, some of the health issues that come along with drug use. And that's not to say that there aren't amazing doctors out there, or really great methadone doctors, or really cool pharmacists, because I've encountered those as well. But unfortunately, the great doctors and the great pharmacists are that only because they choose to be. There's nothing in place that says no, these people are people who use drugs or are accessing methadone are human beings and deserve respect. Yeah, so without going into too much detail, I worked for many years, got university degrees and college diploma, while at the same time, after school or after work, not being able to put in that extra time, because the first thing on my mind, even while being on methadone, was, okay, I got to go, feel normal, so I can do my schoolwork or participate, participate in social events with my friends, or just make it to that next day of school. Using drugs began as something that, for a minute seemed kind of fun, but especially after 20 years, it has become, it's not about getting high at all. For me, it's just about it's about feeling normal, being able to just, function on that basic level that everybody else in society takes so much for granted. Safe supply can mean to me so many opportunities. There's 20 years of my life that could have been so different. And, while I'm not going to look back and say I have a bunch of regrets, these programs really provide a glimpse of hope for me and so many other people. While there are some programs that are starting up in Toronto that provide promise, and are prescribing, from what I understand, Dilaudid or hydromorph, I still have my fears, and I'm worried that even when I do get on one of these programs, it may not be enough. Presently, I am, like so many others, like most of the other people in my situation, I'm using fentanyl. And, hydromorph and Dilaudid, had we had access to these programs, 2-3 years ago when I was still using heroin, the Dilaudid would have been quite sufficient in order to supplement, or not supplement, in order to kind of replace the heroin. But now that, myself and so many others are using fentanyl, I already know that when I do get that safe supply script, that Dilaudid, because of the fentanyl, is so much stronger, as we all see in the news, that the Dilaudid is not going to be enough, and it's going to result in this, a lot of people, either dropping out of the program or remaining, still supplementing their use, or just not having the most effective, experience accessing safe supply. I really think that, I really think that we all need to kind of spread this message, that safe supply, it's something that really so many of us know is necessary. It's almost the starting point for so many other things that are needed to address addictions that all of us are facing. Yeah, it's been a really hard time for so many years, and this is really kind of provides a glimpse of hope for us to kind of move past all these things, gain some dignity. For example, going back to methadone, when you go to methadone, when you start methadone, if you're using heroin, they start you on 30 mils of methadone is like the base where you start on methadone. When they find out you're using fentanyl, they actually start you on, in Toronto, they actually start you on less. They start you on 20 mils. So in fact, you're going to need, 30 mils is not going to cover anybody. Anyone who starts on 30 mils is just going to continue to supplement their use, and then they're going up to 30, they're going up to 40, they're still supplementing their use with the heroin or with fentanyl, and then they're nothing's happening. Their tolerance is just increasing, and there's no exit. You know, you can't for methadone to be effective, you got to kind of decide right from the beginning that you're going to switch from whatever you're using to methadone. But that period in between, you know, where you feel sick psychologically, everything in your body's telling you, okay, I need something, you know, I don't feel right. I need something to, you know, make me feel normal. We have jobs, we have lives, and this has been our way of, and using opioids has been our way of just getting through life for so many years. And when someone has tried all of these different options and they have not worked, a program like Safe Supply is something that really provides them with hope. So what happened to me when I tried to access Safe Supply? Myself, my girlfriend, and our roommate, we all called, you know, all the Safe Supply facilities in Toronto. Regent Park, Riverdale, and I think the third one's called the Shout Clinic. Two of them were filled up, and this was in March or April. Two of them were filled up. Regent Park said that they could get us on a list for Safe Supply. Initially, they actually didn't want to get me, put me on the list because, as I mentioned, I was an injection drug user. So 3 years ago, I switched from, after I ran out of, you know, veins which I could use, I switched from injection drug use to inhalation or sniffing. So they said, oh, well, you know, you're not an injection drug user. That's one of the criteria for getting on this program. Eventually, after talking to the girl for about 20 minutes on the phone, she said, you know what, I'm gonna bring this to the board of at the Safe Supply program and try to get you on. So eventually she got us all on the list. After many phone calls, after 6 months of waiting, eventually we got a call. All three of us got a call saying, oh, unfortunately, you're not gonna be able to get on Safe Supply. They have a limit as to how many people they can let on the program. They have certain criteria, including, I guess, you know, to serve they have a catchment area where they have to serve their local population. The programs in Regent Park were not outside of Toronto, but we're on the north end of the city, so we're a little bit far away. They have numbers they need to reach with respect to LGBTQ and other marginalized groups, which I completely understand, but the numbers they're letting on, it's simply not enough. You know, how is it that, you know, I've been using these drugs for 20 years and that's somehow not good enough? You know, it's great that some people are getting helped, but obviously these programs need to be expanded. I don't know one person in, you know, the group of people that I see on a regular basis who is actually even on a Safe Supply program. And, you know, with the COVID situation and with, you know, with all the other problems in life, it is, you know, it's a unique time that we're in right now, and people really do need these programs. With regards to, you know, drugs that, you know, should be involved in Safe Supply. Right now, I think it's great that, you know, diacetylmorphine or heroin and Dilaudid or hydromorph are included on the program. But like I mentioned earlier, you know, had this been 2 or 3 years ago, that would have been amazing. They would have supplemented, you know, if they're obviously, if I was using heroin and they were giving me diacetylmorphine or pharmaceutical heroin, that would have been great. You know, I would have been in a position where, okay, you know what, I can put this behind me and now move on with my life. You know, this isn't my focus, you know, trying to get this next fix. I'm not living in fear, wondering if I'm going to, you know, get arrested or how I'm going to get money or trying to hide this from my family. You know, I'm in a situation where I have a certain amount of dignity and freedom. You know, from what I understand from Safe Supply is you actually, you know, you can get a script from a doctor where, you know, you get your supply and you take it home. You know, at that point, I would no longer be only thinking of myself as an addict. Yes, I would still be addicted, but I would also be, just also just a regular person who's accessing medication and can think about other aspects of their life. There's so many, things I feel could have contributed. And I know that so many of the other people who are addicted could have contributed to society had they not been wasting their time, again, worrying about where they're going to get money, worried about where they're, going to get their next fix, potentially committing, criminal activities or being involved in situations that they otherwise would never have been involved in. This is something where we are all losing by not having, and to top it off now, as so many of you know, the fentanyl is now even cut with benzos, and this is nothing new. I know heroin was cut with benzos before, but now people are addicted to two drugs. They're addicted to fentanyl, and they don't even realize it in some instances that they're also addicted to the benzos. So they're going to get on a safe supply program, and they're already going to be struggling if they're using fentanyl, but then above and beyond that, they're going to be going through some serious benzo withdrawal, and the program's not going to work for them. They're going to be like, I'm sick, something's wrong. I gotta, this isn't working, I'm gone. Or they could have some serious, benzo withdrawal can actually even cause death or like seizures or heart issues from what I understand. And, people can be, put in some serious, health situations. All these things kind of have to be taken into consideration. I really hope the one great thing that I was provided by the Safe Supply program when they said, and the person who said that I wasn't going to be on the program was indeed amazing. And he, spoke to me for 20 minutes and provided me with an advocacy package, which I can now take to doctors. I have an appointment tomorrow where I'm going to be giving this to my family doctor, and I can give this to doctors to show them that, hey, there's now legislation that, throughout Canada that federal legislation that allows for people to get access to a safe supply. And 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, we have the legislation. We are, we're here, like, let me find a doctor and get on safe supply. But unfortunately, somehow that is still not good enough. There is such a reluctance among doctors and even in the world of methadone to accept this new, safe supply and this new kind of thinking around how to treat drug use. Obviously, with the methadone doctors, there's a financial incentive to keep the current system of methadone going. Even, I hate to say it, rehabs, all those places have an incentive to not to keep the status quo rather than look at this new option. And it's going to be a hard battle. Even changing the minds of doctors to realize that, hey, this is something that I can do right now. I'm not going to get in trouble after being told for so many years, if you prescribe someone these drugs, you could go to jail, you could lose your license, you could get audited. After facing these consequences for so long, it's going to be something that's really difficult. So I'm super optimistic. I hate to end on that kind of down note, but while I'm very optimistic about safe supply, I'm just in the beginning of my own safe supply journey. Feel free to keep in touch with me if you want to, know how things went, how things have gone for me. But yeah, it's been a hard go so far. So my name is Ben, and thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I would just want to check in with the other folks that are on the screen right now. So Aaron and Julie Soleil, if they have any questions for Ben or any thoughts. I know I took some notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, Ben, you did great. Thank you for doing that. One of my questions is, do you find that the complexity of getting safe supply worth it or not worth it? It's kind of a hard question.
It's a tough question for me too. It's definitely worth it. I'm definitely going to try. I'm going to take that advocacy package and, go to as many doctors. I have my heart set on some kind of, I can't, it's been many years and obviously, you know, I know many people much older than me who've been, you know, doing what I've been doing for much longer than I have. And I have to try, you know, for myself, for my family, for my girlfriend, yeah, I have to give it a shot. There's so many things I want to do, and it's really unfortunate that, you know, while the drug is itself is problematic, it's all these barriers that society has implemented which make it so much worse. Had I had a safe supply, you know, through the course of my life, I can only imagine, you know, the possibilities. Who's to say if things would have gone, how different things would have really have been, but the possibilities are endless. And so, yeah, I'm definitely, for me, it's worth it. But yeah, there's certainly barriers. And for many, it's going to be, I can totally see why they would give up. You call, no, we're full. No, I can't do it. No, you know, yeah, that's it. Like you can go to doctor, like how many times, how many doctors saying no, or how many, you know, where, you know, a lot of people are going to give up. And, you know, who knows, maybe I even will. I really hope I don't, but yeah.
What I hope you don't as well, but I
Thank
also hope you make choices that are good for you, because your job is to do you, right? I just want to remind people that if they have questions, they can put it in the Q&A chat, but I'm going to pull one out of the regular chat because it's specifically for Ben. Ben, do you think there is a better alternative to dillies or hydromorphone for a safe supply?
I think for me, if they gave me fentanyl patches, which I've never actually used a fentanyl patch before, I've only used street fentanyl, but it's the same drug in a safe form. If they gave me fentanyl patches, and I would do whatever it took I would just wear that patch, and, you know, I have no concern about getting high. If it got me through my day, if they needed me to return the piece of plastic from the patch or do whatever to make sure, you know, when I came back at the end of the week or whenever to refill the script, to make sure I wasn't diverting it to the black market, so be it. I would do it, and with a smile on my face. You know, it's not that I love doing this drug, it's that I just need to do it. It's not an easy, as anyone who's done this knows, it's not an easy go to just stop. You know, so many people say, just stop doing it. This could happen to anybody. I've seen it happen to people. It does not discriminate. You know, there's doctors, there's a gentleman in Mom Stop the Harm, who's one of the head people there, who was a doctor who, you know, got in a ski accident or something, and was prescribed fentanyl, and eventually started using it, and so, you know, he wasn't prescribed fentanyl, he was prescribed an opioid, which he used to, you know, after to deal with the pain. But eventually he worked his way up to using fentanyl and doing all kinds of things to, you know, get the drug, and ended up getting his house raided, and I think, you know, going in front of the courts and all that. And yeah, he's a doctor. You know, I know one of my friend's moms who was a nurse who got in a similar situation. It doesn't discriminate as to your social standing or who you are. Like, these drugs do the same thing to anybody. And if you do them long enough, you will need them. And it's every molecule in your body telling you that you need it. And even after the withdrawals are done, even, you know, a month, you know, 2 months, 3 months down the road, when that physical withdrawal is done, in your brain is still telling you, you know, that on a different level, that, okay, you need this to kind of feel normal, or this is good. You know, to get over that, I don't know how long it'll take to get over that, you know. Yeah.
Then you're in a great spot where it's like, it seems, or it's a terrible spot. It's gonna be one of those where it seems that you're the person speaking on behalf of everybody. But I know, no pressure, man. The reality is there's also lots of conversation going on in the chat.
Yes.
And one of the things we're going to do is give you a heads up that Blood Ties Jesse from Blood Ties looks to have somebody kicking around there. So they're going to join in. So if somebody just pops up, don't freak out. That's who it is, everybody else. the next question I'm going to ask, and it looks like
I
nobody's...
might have something
Oh, go
in
ahead, Julie.
French. So one of the participants from Quebec was talking about that in Quebec we see a lot of waiting lists and things for methadone and other things like that. Do you seem to see that too, or other people? So people might want it or might be able, but in the end, the capacity of getting it is quite complicated also.
For me to answer?
Well, yes, yes,
Sure.
just to talk about a little bit.
That's exactly my experience. We were on a waiting list for 6 months, you know, just to even for them to even decide whether we could kind of go to the next stage and get an assessment. And yeah, and they did a phone assessment, I think. And then after that, they called and said no. But yeah, there was a long waiting list in the case of the existing safe supply programs. And I know that they had, their capacity was quite limited. So.
Okay. So it seems like it's something that is that we see a little bit across Canada and things like that. Well, Ontario, Quebec, I imagine people from everywhere else can put it in the chat also. It's always a good information to have.
I'm actually going to ask Marcia, and Marcia, all I know about Marcia is that her last name starts with an F, but she has her hand up. So I'm going to ask her if she has any questions, and I'm going to, oh, look, Marcia, it brings you in here. Welcome. Welcome to the panelist box. Marcia, do you have a question?
I was just listening to everything that was going on, and I think I thank you very much for the sharing and everything. I was just wondering, with the gentleman that's speaking, how do you deal with so I know a lot of the issues and stuff like that we face here, so around the stigma and everything like that, not just from the other regular users, but also from like people, like staff people or anything like that, people within the buildings. So how do you deal with that? Because I've got a few people that I'm supporting that I'm not really 100% sure, because, you know, it's not looking at abstinence, we're not looking at this, that, whatever. This is like just a normal way of living. How do you deal with the stigma and stuff like that comes with that?
The only way I know how to deal with it is to hold your head up, be polite to others, show them that drug users aren't, that drug use isn't necessarily connected with so many people's preconceived notions about being a bad person or not wanting to help others or being selfish. And in many instances, there's so many instances that I can think of where it's the exact opposite. There's been a lot of caring people and a lot of just desperate people. When people are put in desperate situations, it's hard to say what any of us would do. And I can definitely speak to that firsthand. But at the same time, we all have choices, and sometimes the really, really, really hard choices. And we can't necessarily judge others on the choices that they make when they're in a really tough, desperate situation. So we're all human beings. We've all made mistakes. There's no one here who hasn't. So the only way that I know how to deal with that is to just hold my head up and try to, it's to try, do the best I can, be polite, and you just have to power through it. Hopefully, it makes you a little stronger for it. But the stigma, it's really hard to change other people. So you can change them by, I find, leading by some sort of example, to be the best way. You can tell people something a million times, but if you show them, hey, this guy, okay, he uses drugs, but he's actually a good guy, that might help open some people's minds. And whether it be doctors or just neighbors or whoever it is, and help gather some momentum for this movement.
Excellent. That was beautifully phrased. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. Look at us learning how to do things. Now let's see. Yep. Bye, Marcia. We sent Marcia back, but we love her. Thanks for putting up your hand, asking a question that way. And Erin, did you have a question coming out of the chat that you want to start it?
Yeah. Somebody has said, thanks, Ben. For folks who use fentanyl, who are not just looking to maintain, but also seeking that euphoric warmth, do you think there's another medication that could be used on top up to the patch?
Sure. the result for me, my experience personally, so wait, just to speak about like the high and stuff like that, when I was injecting heroin, certainly whenever you inject heroin, there's, you, as everyone who has done it knows, there is that, when you put it in your, not a muscle shot, but when you actually like put it in your vein, there is certainly going to be a euphoric high. With fentanyl, I noticed that when you do the same thing, there is not so much of that. The rush or high you get is a little bit different than heroin, but you still kind of get the high. But the other thing I noticed is that eventually, especially when I eventually switched to sniffing, but even, you know, when I was, you know, using it by injection, after a period of time, it gets really, really hard to continue to get that high. Like eventually, well, for years, whenever I would, you know, do heroin, I would get that rush when I did it, no matter what. But when you switch to fentanyl, I found that eventually trying to chase that high can be quite dangerous and difficult to replicate all the time. So if you want my honest opinion is, you know, to still try to kind of, you know, maintain with, you know, safety in mind, and maybe try to use some like what I do is I maybe like smoke a joint, and I know it's easier said than done, but you know, if you smoke a joint or do something that's maybe a little bit safer, you know, even in combination, like smoking a joint and doing, you know, an opioid isn't really that dangerous. So marijuana is quite safe. So that's one kind of way of doing it. It gets really risky in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people, you know, overdose, you know, just trying to, you know, do more and do more. So, and in terms of a substitution medication, it's just tricky. You know, yeah, you'd have to still get, if you want, if whatever you're feeling like right now when you're doing it is what you want to replicate, you know, yeah, they're going to have to give you fentanyl, and you're going to have to do it in a similar mode of ingestion as you're doing it right now. I don't know. I don't really see too many kind of other options.
Thanks, Ben. I have a question, and I think there's going to be folks that may want to answer this for themselves or what they think from their experience in the chat. And Matt says, incredible presentation, Ben. My question is are the methods, are the methods you would get the drug, so liquid, pills, powder, for example, are they a barrier to accessing safe supply?
You want me to go?
As in, you can only get pills, but or you only sniff, but you can only get pills, for example.
Do you want me to go ahead, Shay?
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I think for some people it certainly is. You know, if you're injecting something, it has to be water soluble, so you would need it to be preferably in a liquid or powder form. Obviously in a pill form, it's still possible depending on the formulation of the pill, but some pills are basically impossible to get to, you know, dissolve in water. And so yeah, it's certainly especially for people that who are kind of still trying to get that high, it's going to make a bigger difference. So I think that's more on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, I'm not nothing against, you know, like I totally get the getting high thing. It took a long time for me to get my head around, and I just kind of accepted it as like, how else am I going to get out of this thing until I just kind of get my head out of that. And it's still hard. And, you know, I always kind of thought, you know, for many years, I thought, okay, you know, if I can just get over this whole idea of getting high, you know, it's going to be so much easier to quit. But then, okay, I kind of did get a little bit, you know, I don't really think about being high now. I just think about being normal. And it's still, you know, okay, I'm still here, you know, doing this. And, you know, it wasn't good enough. And I don't mean to be so bleak in kind of my observations, but, you know, safe supply is really promising. I really do think it's an amazing start to kind of so many of us, kind of getting, what we need to kind of move on past this. And hopefully, my dream is kind of one day, we don't have to have these same conversations. We can talk about, just how our existing awesome safe supply program is and ways to make it better. But right now it's really in an early phase, and I think there's going to be a lot of unfortunately time and hiccups, time that passes and hiccups along the way, and it's going to suck. Unfortunately, people might overdose, but or will overdose between now and then, and that really sucks. So I think getting to where we need to go as fast as possible is awesome, but yeah, we have to find the right ways and convince policymakers that that this is an imperative. Yeah, I don't know. I went on a tangent there, but yeah.
That's incredible. I have maybe something from Quebec also, Jean-Sébastien Fallu, and this is another question, but anybody can answer, but maybe Ben also. It's a question that comes up a lot. How could safe supply programs eventually serve occasional users, not only very habitual or users, but the occasional user that wants to take it once in a while in a safer, like a safer supply and things like that? Have you an idea about that, what it could look like, or have you had conversations about that in that sense? It would be nice to have your insight on that.
I definitely have a thought on that. Occasional users, I do not personally recommend. I think I think on the one hand, there should definitely, in an ideal world, there should be access. No one should be criminalized or punished for using drugs, and they should not be forced to buy them on the street, ideally. So there should definitely be some kind of, channel in legal society that allows them to access these drugs. On the other hand, in a kind of prescriptive sense, I don't think that ideally we don't want people to be doing, to be just dabbling in heroin. Should they be allowed to? Yes. Should there be a way for them to do it if they want to? Yes. But, because once we try and stop people, we've all seen how that kind of plays out. So, yeah, I think having that available is something that is definitely, going to have to be worked out for these things to be effective. But at the same token, I am of the belief that having certain like very heavily addictive drugs in like a 7-Eleven isn't the way to go. So that's my kind of view on that.
Thank you very much. Maybe Erin has a question.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at the question and answer queue here. One of the questions is, Ben, you mentioned experiencing a lack of respect when accessing methadone, and the fact there's nothing in place to ensure people who use drugs feel respected when accessing care. What do you personally think is important in addressing this issue of respect in the context of delivering safe supply programs?
Well, that's also a very tough question, because how do you legislate respect? There are ways to do it. There can be certain kind of levels and standards of care that are implemented, but I think that the kind of deeper problem is in just the public perception of, it's been pounded in, the generation of our parents, the baby boomers, and in the 80s would just say no. And for so long that people who use drugs or are involved with drugs are kind of demons or are different or the other. And it's about change to get respect. It's a very kind of human thing that is again, yes, we can implement certain standards of care, which I think is certainly important in hospitals of how we treat people who are dealing with drug use or addiction, and by allowing them access to certain services, I certainly think that will kind of engender or move towards like a greater respect in hospitals and in clinics and all that. But yeah, I also think it's going to take time when these things become normalized, when safe supply is normal, when drug use is a medical issue rather than a criminal issue. those I think will be the biggest kind of pieces in terms of people like me or in a similar position as myself getting a level of respect.
All right. So I go ahead. Okay. So I wanted to let you know that one of our panelists is going to join us. Just had a little hiccup with what we like to call the alarm clock. And like me, not a morning person, so I appreciate that. Let's do this. Is it okay if I just ask another like crazy Jay question? I understand that some of the trickiness related to accessing safe supply is actually the relationship between the doctor and yourself, or the prescriber and yourself. Have you found that there was any great tricks or helpful hints in building that relationship and having it go well?
Oh, is that for me again, or is that for the new person?
The new person isn't here yet, Ben.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know you were going to be a little bit off the hook here soon. So
okay. Well, no, I don't. To be honest, I don't mind. But tricks, and unfortunately, the tricks thus far and again, I think many people can relate to this, has been you have to keep certain things to yourself. You cannot, like with some doctors, obviously there's more leeway, but there's some doctors who their primary concern is not their oath or serving their patients. It's, oh, am I going to get audited or their business or stuff like that. So sometimes you have to keep stuff to yourself because it can get you kicked off of programs. It can get you, penalized or experiencing some kind of punitive measure, whatever it may be, which losing your carries on methadone or in rehab, being kicked out of rehab. So this has been the kind of case so far, and there's no really great trick in terms of accessing, finding a doctor on safe supply. Like, I would like to know the trick so I could get on it because I'm not on safe supply yet. So if there's a trick to kind of convince a doctor, that actually might be a great, or maybe advice. But, again, for so long, trying to talk to a doctor about getting these medications was a criminal thing. So this is all very fresh and new, and I'm in myself just trying to kind of figure it out. And I don't like, I've told some lies in my life, as we all have, and especially in the context of all this stuff, and I don't like doing that, and I don't like to do it unless I have to. Unless I'm in a situation where it's like, okay, this is my boss, I can't tell him about this stuff, or I can't say where I'm going after work or whatever, or this is, my doctor, if I say this, I'm going to be kicked off of this program. So that's the unfortunate reality, but I really hope that, that kind of stuff changes. And from the documents that I've seen and from what I've read about, the kind of goals and the doctors who are involved in safe supply in Toronto, they really get these things, and they're looking at it in a whole different light. The irony of it is that these male doctors who've dominated the space of for centuries are the ones who kind of failed us, and all the doctors who are really pioneering this in Toronto are female doctors, and they're doing an amazing job, and they really have kind of, all their, scoping documents and the stuff that I've read kind of really shows that they're trying to, again, there's always kind of work to get better, to improve, room to improve, but they get these things, they get the issues that we're facing, and they're making a conservative effort within the kind of parameters of budgets and what the government says and all that kind of stuff. So it is a hopeful time.
I'm glad. Hope is great. Paul has a question, and it's to the folks who use drugs. Is there a safe supply for meth or crack? Ben, Julie Soleil, Aaron, people in the chat are allowed to answer that. Any of you? I feel like there is. I feel like somebody knows the answer to this question. Oops, somebody has their hand up.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ben. And we'll look at the next.
I was just going to say that I heard when we were having our pre-meeting, or maybe it was in another meeting, that someone had mentioned that in Montreal, there is a program to get something, another stimulant. And I've heard about like Ritalin and stuff like that for being prescribed. So I've heard that there are some options. Their effectiveness, I can't speak to it, but that's what I've heard.
And I think there's dexamphetamine also that can be prescribed and things like that. It's less in the safe supply. But I think in Quebec and in BC, they included the stimulants in the different safe supply kind of things that can be done. But I could imagine there's Adderall projects, somebody's saying here. And so, yes, there are different types of substances that can be prescribed. That mimic a little bit, but as I think Ben has said, it depends on your use, on your frequency, on who you are, and what type of substances you use. So it has to be done with the person and how that person is actually using the substance, and to make it available in that sense. So people like Alex Bestos was saying Dexedrine, there's Ritalin. So yeah, so there's stuff a little bit everywhere. People are talking about that. So in the chat, you can look at that. And we have a new person that has just arrived.
Ty had her hand up, so I've brought her in. Ty, did you have a comment or a question?
Basically nothing that's been hasn't been addressed already. But I was just basically going to say, if they legitimized Dosoxin like it is in the States, that's technically is actually methamphetamine. And then obviously the methylphenidate and such like that, although that has its own slew of issues.
Perfect. Thanks, Ty.
Thanks.
And I'm going to bring in Shannon, has a comment or a question as well.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much. So I did have, and I don't know if it's okay if I ask 2 questions, because I just am so interested in what you guys have to say. Firstly, thank you for sharing, Ben. I am a nursing student, and so I'm really curious. I advocate for this type of programming, and I believe that it's so important. And I feel terrible having to tell a patient that they just can't have access to it while someone else can. So what could I say to a patient to continue to instill hope in them, and to get them to, knowing that I have a limited capacity to follow up with every patient that needs it, get them to keep coming back and saying, is it ready yet? Can I be on that list yet? Like, what can I do to make sure that you know that there is somebody that cares out there, and that it might take us 10 years to get this rolled out properly or what have you, but that you need to keep asking, and that you can't give up, because it's people with lived experience that make that possible.
I think, thank you, Shannon. That's a great question. I think that you're probably already doing an amazing job. I can speak to the gentleman that actually called me to say that I was not going to be on, I wasn't going to be able to access their safe supply program. He called me back after, 6 months of being on the list and doing on-phone assessments and all that kind of stuff. And I actually never talked to him specifically before. There was a bunch of other really amazing people working there at the Regent Park, where they have one of the safe supply programs, and I ended up speaking with him for 20 minutes. And I think you're already probably doing a really great job, just letting them know about whatever programs you're aware of, letting them know that, hey, yeah, it's a shitty time, but I'm with you. I care about you. I'm want to do whatever I can to help. I'm sure you're probably already doing it, just giving them as much information as you can about what is available and what might be available in the future, and just letting them know that, hey, I'm here for you, please come back, and trying to just build that relationship with them. I think can be, super effective in terms of bringing them into the fold and getting them access to, whatever is available. And when you have that relationship, when something does become available, it'll be much easier to, let them know or to have that, you already have that contact with them, and I'm sure you have experiences like that already, but unfortunately, what else can you do beyond that? We're all limited by, what governments have, what legislation exists, and yeah, I'm sure you're already, you sound like an amazing person who's already doing as much as you are able to. So thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Ben. I am going to go to a question, and there are so many questions. I kind of love you guys. You're gonna be my new best Stimulus Connect group. You know what? There's been a conversation, and I think Richard brought it up initially in the chat, which was, why is this so? Well, I'm looking for it here. Why is it just being a medical issue? Why is safe supply? No, I'm doing this terribly. We need to think of it beyond just a medical issue. Safe supply is a matter of consumer protection. What do you figure about that, Ben? Should it be, how medicalized should it be? Should it be medicalized at all? Should doctors be involved? Should it be community-based? So many questions.
With regard to the consumer protection thing, I think that's a great lens to look at it through. But having in order for it to truly be safe, we need whether it be harm reduction workers or some type of experts to at least be able to get in there and protect the consumers. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be medicalized, but there's so much, in terms of what's available on the street, which is so many times, that's what people want, because yeah, there's a bunch of other things that might be in there that they're addicted to or that they like or that they need. But, it's kind of a double-edged sword. This is kind of what people need or want. But at the same time, it's really tough. And I think in the end, this consumer protection lens is a good way to look at it. Get a team on the ground that not only kind of tests but here's the problem. So if we take it out of if they're not getting the pharmaceutical, if they're getting the street stuff, you're kind of limited in terms of, okay, so we can do testing and we can let you know what's in it, which is already happening. But if there's bad things in it, or if there's something that the person doesn't want, it's just, in terms of the street supply, there's so many unknowns. And what do you do? So you then kind of purify it or take something out or change it, or what do you do? And that would be on a case by case basis. So that would also be kind of a massive undertaking. I just don't know how. You would just have to say, okay, we'll let you know what's in your drugs, which is what's already happening, and we won't criminalize you for it, which, okay, I completely agree with that too. But beyond that, I don't really know what can be done. I agree, cut the red tape. People should not be criminalized for doing any of this stuff. And yeah, that's certainly a way to look at it. I don't know. Yeah. So I agree. Maybe, this can happen on both ends. You can have, you can have the medicalized, safe supply program and all of that. And then you can also have, the kind of ground, grassroots programs that are out there doing the testing and letting people know what's in their stuff and providing the safe consumption sites. And then also, you take the police presence out of it and the criminalization and the courts and all of that out of it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to, both approaches.
I actually have a related question. So Susan Davis asked, how do people feel about using the substitute drugs? She often wonders about the model used in England where crack was given to patients as the actual best approach.
Well, I think if there's something, if it's not a street version of the drug, if you just give them crack, sure, you know, if there is a company in the world that's manufacturing this, or if there's a safe way for them to, you know, make sure you're getting like a safe form of the drug where the, you know, quantities are of the active ingredients in it or whatever are known, sure. That's certainly, you know, I think one of the approaches that you know, can be taken, you know, to kind of ameliorate some of the like the slew of issues that so many of us are facing. But I think, in my opinion, having the medical option is also kind of an important angle. So many people, including myself, are facing many health impacts and many, you know, other other kind of have other things going on, that having a doctor there who can kind of guide us along the, like it's not a bad thing necessarily to me, but at the same time, yeah, the black market's going to exist. So why not just, you know, replace that black market with an actual safe supply that's of the actual drugs? Sure, I think it's a great idea.
All right, Susan had her hand up as well, so she's lovely. Susan, any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, can you hear me? I don't know. Am I coming through? Okay. So during the legalization of marijuana, I often wondered about the destabilization of the distribution networks that were already in place. And as we're moving forward towards decriminalization of all drugs, I wonder if there shouldn't be an effort to engage with those people who are the experts in distribution. And while the supply has been poisoned, you know, we do say things to people like, know your drug dealer. And why can't we engage with that side of things in trying to find safe drugs and to try to discuss safer distribution? In Vancouver, in the downtown east side and other places, there are bars. In the back of the bar, there will be somebody who sells powder, somebody who sells down, somebody who sells crack, somebody who sells meth, single cigarettes, and then there's a money lender who charges less than Money Mart, I might add. You know, why are we not talking to the people who are doing the distribution and talking to them about how we could do better and how could we help them make a safer supply? Why aren't we contacting the people that sell the heroin in the Golden Triangle? Why are we looking at pharmaceuticals? That's really, and I wonder what people think about that. I mean, oftentimes drug dealers are, you know, everybody places the burden of guilt on the drug dealers. But in my experience, standing in the pouring rain selling $5 rocks is not the gangsta life. They're not doing this because it's great and fun. You know, I just think that we're totally excluding an entire group of people who are a part of this issue. And I wonder if it wouldn't be smart if, as a society, we were to try to engage with them a little bit more broadly.
I would love to answer this question. I thoroughly agree with you, Susan. The idea that you're putting forth is, I completely agree with. In reality, you know, how willing would governments be to do this is another question. But engaging with, like, I'm of the personal belief that anybody who is involved with selling drugs or anything like that, they're not doing it because they want to be doing that. They're not, you know, living in fear or be with the threat of prison because they want to. You know, there's other underlying issues here, whether it's, you know, economic mobility or certain financial issues, or whether it's addiction to pay for their own addiction. Yeah, no one. I'm of the personal belief that nobody should be going to jail for using drugs or for selling drugs. On the other hand, if that you know, drug dealer is involved in other criminal activity, yeah, I certainly have a problem with, you know, assault and murder and all those other crimes, you know, as I'm sure, you know, almost everyone here does. But yeah, to engage with that community as well, I think is certainly, you know, would be a great idea. And it would certainly have many kind of benefits, whether it be kind of their, you know, hands-on kind of knowledge of you know, of how drugs have been distributed for, you know, for however long, or you know, the knowledge of the you know, their daily interactions with clients, and their, you know, hands-on kind of knowledge of that aspect of it, or of what's actually in the drugs. And just like, you know, just like in any kind of sector of life, there's good people and bad people. There's good people in, you know, I'm sure every workplace, you know, that you can think of, and there's good people, you know, using drugs, and bad people using drugs, and the same goes, I think, for selling drugs. And I don't, and yeah, I certainly agree with Susan that, you know, these people have been demonized heavily when they're not. Yeah, it's not the gangsta life. You know, most people who are doing this are not, you know, drug cartel members, or, you know, putting, you know, people's bodies in vats of acid, or doing anything crazy like that. Most of them, you know, some of them that I know are just, you know, people who are trying to pay for their very expensive addiction, you know, trying to find a way to pay for it, or, you know, are in tough economic times for, you know, whatever reason. So, and they certainly do have knowledge and a certain level of expertise to add to this conversation. On the flip side of that coin, would governments actually, you know, take that seriously? Look what happened with marijuana legalization. All the people who fought so hard, you know, Mark Emery, and all these kind of people who are part of this movement, this marijuana movement, for years and years and years, were completely left out of the conversation of how are we going to implement marijuana. In Ontario, Bill Blair, who was the police chief who put so many people in jail for marijuana, was then put on the panel that was going to decide how legalization was rolled out, and was there any kind of person with lived experience or who was part of the, you know, marijuana movement involved in that panel? No. And all of a sudden, Bill Blair, who is on the one hand putting people in jail for using marijuana and selling marijuana, is now, you know, I believe he has some kind of financial interest in a marijuana company. So yeah, there's crazy hypocrisy there. There's obviously government corruption issues and all kinds of, you know, other special interests that, you know, might make what we're talking about here problematic. But is it a good idea? Is there merit to what you're saying? I certainly agree. And to stigmatize, you know, people who sell drugs, I think it's not a fair kind of analysis of what's really going on.
Thanks, Ben. I'm actually going to wonder and see if Heather Hobbs here. Let me see if I can find Heather. Heather has some great questions. Oh, Heather, you might need to put your hand up because the alphabetizing only worked so well. Or actually, Julia Slade, can you find her? Our participant lists are actually alphabetized, but not always. Sometimes people like move down or they move up. It's kind of interesting. One of the things I wanted to let everybody know while we try and track down Heather, who's probably, she could be fleeing right now because she doesn't want to talk also, that's possible. Is that if when you're looking at the chat, you normally are going to see lots of blue and black. So the writing is in black, the who or who it's from comes in as blue. If you see red, it means somebody has private messaged you. And so if you're seeing red and not responding, that's us being all like, hello. So why don't you just take a look there? If we can't find Heather, that's okay. She had 4 people respond to this.
No, I don't have Heather. I can't.
And you know what? Her first comment after her question was, "I have to log off now." So we are.
Oh, well, there you go. We're looking for nothing.
But she has a great question. Within the limits of the current medical model, knowing we need to move past this, what does an ideal safer supply program look like for you? And then she has a bunch of sub questions. So let's say, what are the drugs offered? Ben, what do you think? What would be the best drugs offered?
I think to start with, I think maybe I have a bias because I'm an opioid user, but I feel like the opioid epidemic, you know, it's killed more people than COVID. it's quite urgent. People using opioids need opioids to function. So this is a really, really pressing issue that is, 25 years ago, heroin and opioids were kind of more of an underground thing. And then Oxycontin came out, and then, over the years, fentanyl, and now, heroin and fentanyl seems to be everywhere. So I really kind of feel like it's a pressing issue. What should be included? In the end, everything. In the end, yeah, in my opinion, take all of this stuff out of the realm of the criminal and get it into the medical, or get it, get the, like as the gentleman said, the consumer protection, do that at a street level, and protect consumers, find them a channel for, whether it's not pharmaceutical grade, find them a channel for whatever it is that they're seeking that is safe. And again, I don't think, okay, we don't want to have this in every corner store. I don't necessarily think we want to encourage this, but for example, I was in Holland, a couple years back with my girlfriend, and I was reading some of the local literature, and many years ago, I was also there in like around the year 2000, and the place looks completely different. And even before that, now they have like tours where people who are former junkies take a group through the cities and shows all the places where they used to score their dope, and they used to do this and they used to do that. And now these places aren't like this. They've taken heroin out of the the criminal counterculture. They've taken it out of there and put it into the medical sphere, where now heroin isn't something that's cool. It's something that you do in a hospital. Is that a perfect model? No, but the reality is they're finding that young people aren't trying this stuff anymore. All the heroin addicts are over 40. Young people aren't interested in trying this. Do I think it's something that should be inaccessible? No. Do I want to encourage young people to try this? No. So again, I think these things should in the end be accessible, and it shouldn't only be through medical channels, because if we keep it only in the realm of the medical, then the black market will continue to fill the void that's left behind. So we need to kind of have a model that can also kind of replicate, like as was brought up, get these people the drugs that they're seeking if the pharmaceutical approach isn't working, but while at the same time making these drugs safe. So I'm not saying it's gonna be an easy task and there's gonna be a lot to figure out, but certainly the first step is saying, hey, we're not sending people to jail for drugs anymore. Like that's the first step, in my opinion. Decriminalize, legalize, and then find a way to do it in a safe way that provide, in education. I think a big reason why I wasn't as afraid to try heroin as I might have been was because, I tried marijuana when I was 15 years old, and I realized, shit, everything that everybody told me about marijuana was a lie. And then it made me question, like what about all these other drugs? And honestly, when I first tried heroin, I remember a friend of mine had tried it before me, and he was sitting there saying that he was sick. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're sick. You're making this up. You're lying. Like, honestly, like I was so skeptical, even though, in movies you can see people getting sick and this and that. I didn't know what to believe, and I didn't know if he was, exaggerating or what. And I think, had I received a more straightforward education about these things, and if had this been the kind of norm in society, I think things would be quite different. Building a level of trust in transparency. It's what we're always talking about. It's what everybody wants in politics. It's what everybody, and it's what furthers society. Like, we've known this for a long time, and applying this to kind of the way we treat the kind of drugs and addiction, I think is very necessary. We have to stop this whole mentality of, oh, we got to protect, yeah, definitely protect children, but I think have frank conversations about what this really is. Yeah, your drugs, yeah, you might like it, but it's also going to do this, this, and this. So, just tell people the truth, and then they make informed decisions. Lie to them, and now, like I said before about leading by example, now they don't trust you. Now they're like, oh, he's saying one thing, but then it's really this, and now you have issues. So as I experienced firsthand, yeah, I found out you do get sick eventually, you know, after a month. And then as the saying goes, when you want to quit, you can, and when you can quit, you don't want to. Like in that early phase where it would have been much easier to stop. I was loving it. I'm like, I don't want to stop doing this. But then eventually when you're kind of in too deep and you eventually realize you want to quit, now it's very, very difficult. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Before I hand it over to Lou, who's going to speak in French. So if you folks have not put on your closed captioning and you only speak and read English, you need to go down to the bottom of your screen or flip through if you're on a phone and turn on your closed captioning, because Lou is going to speak in French. But I just want to say two things first. The next Stimulus webinar, which is on decriminalization, called Beyond the Buzz, is on October 14th. And Julie Soleil and the team over at AIDQ are the lead on that. So loving you for that. It's going to be a good webinar. The next Stimulus Connect, so number 6, is about drug policy and defunding the police. Lou, are you ready? And I'll let you introduce yourself. There you go.
Do you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Good. So I'm a drug user. I use mostly cocaine, heroin. I've been on a safe supply since the beginning of COVID, which was for me around March or April. I'm also on methadone, so I get both. I get a safe supply of dilaudid, nothing else. That's it for the presentation, I think. I want to keep my identity like private because of the things I'll say in my presentation. So yeah, that'll be it. So that is that all right? Good. And I'll maybe switch from English to French sometimes. Donc, en fait, désolée premièrement là, pour le retard. Ce qui s'est passé hier là, illustre un petit peu l'inutilité du safe supply, je trouve, en ce moment. J'ai dû gérer une surdose d'une amie qui était sur un safe supply d'ailleurs. J'ai moi-même comme fait une surdose aussi il y a 2 jours et je suis sur un safe supply. Donc, le safe supply, dans le fond, qui couvre pas la substance de choix des gens, je commence à réaliser, dans le fond, là, pas la totale inutilité, là, je veux dire, je pense qu'il y a quand même une certaine utilité, mais sincèrement, quand c'est pas la substance de choix, on est vraiment en train de manquer notre coup. Ici, à Montréal, dans le fond, c'est surtout le safe supply pour les opioïdes qui est offert. Il y a quelques instances là, d'amphétamines qui sont offertes pour remplacer la cocaïne, tout ça. Mais c'est toutes des substances, dans le fond, qui se donnent oralement ou qui se prennent une fois par jour. Donc, on s'entend, il n'y a pas beaucoup de lien avec la cocaïne ou le crack ou la façon dont ça peut être consommé. Ici, j'ai l'impression, là, dans le fond, qu'il y a peut-être pas une certaine confusion avec les traitements de substitution, mais je pense que les docteurs sont encore beaucoup dans cette façon de faire là. Il y a des doses limites, là, dans le fond, qui ont été prescrites par le Collège des médecins, qui est l'instance un peu là, qui dit aux médecins comment faire leurs choses. Puis au-delà de ça aussi, là, je vois chez les médecins vraiment une réticence comme à monter au-delà de certaines doses qui sont vraiment faibles. Dans le fond, en ce qui me concerne, moi, on avait calculé avec ma médecin que pour atteindre une dose qui faisait du sens pour couvrir le plus bas de mes besoins récréatifs, on était à 18 dilodides par jour. Je pense que la limite à ce moment-là prescrite, demandée par le Collège des médecins, c'était des guidelines qui étaient encore qui n'était pas permanent, là, qui était seulement comme écrit le plus vite possible pendant le COVID, mais il me semble à l'époque, c'était quelque chose comme 14 par jour. Donc, puis j'ai pas une tolérance particulièrement haute, là, donc ça couvre pas vraiment les besoins, là, je pense, pour une dose récréative. En ce qui me concerne aussi, là, on est monté à 9 dilodéduites par jour, puis on n'est jamais monté. Je sais pas trop comme pourquoi. Ce qui m'amène un peu à mon point 2, là aussi, qui est la relation avec le médecin. C'est présenté tellement comme quelque chose d'exceptionnel, le Safe Supply, que depuis que j'ai le Safe Supply, j'ai une très grande réticence là, à demander quoi que ce soit à ma médecin. Je me sens toujours comme obligée d'accepter peu importe ce qu'elle me propose. Dans le fond, là, c'est vraiment, j'ai l'impression qu'elle a le gros bout du bâton constamment. Même si le Safe Supply, comme je disais plus tôt, n'est pas l'idéal, reste que c'est quand même un peu là, je dirais une certaine base là, qui me permet certains jours d'avoir un stock de drogues récréatives. Par contre, après ça, quand je sais qu'elle peut m'enlever mon Safe Supply, puis que parfois, elle me le rappelle aussi, qu'elle me dit des fois, ben, on ne pourra pas continuer comme ça tout le temps, il va falloir le descendre, il va falloir l'enlever. Moi, je me sens jamais à l'aise de refuser, mettons, si elle me demande de monter mon TAO en me disant « Ah, ça va sûrement t'enlever tes cravings » ou je me sens pas tant à l'aise de dire « Hey, je suis juste à 9 dilodides par jour, est-ce qu'on pourrait monter à 18 comme on se parlait avant? » Le Safe Supply aussi a été mis en place dans le contexte de la COVID. Donc, à la base aussi, moi, cette prescription-là était pour seulement 3 mois que ma médecin avait dit ou la fin de la COVID, selon ce qui arrivait le plus vite possible. Je suis encore dessus, là, donc évidemment, j'imagine qu'elle a peut-être comme réfléchi ces choses, mais de un, je trouve que ça montre assez une... pas que c'est insultant, mais c'est dommage qu'il faille le COVID, dans le fond, pour commencer le Safe Supply. Personnellement, je me sens... oui, il y a du fentanyl qui est rentré à Montréal depuis quelques mois, mais au début du COVID, il n'y avait pas de fentanyl. Le stock de drogue à Montréal n'avait pas encore changé. Fait que je trouve ça quand même hypocrite, dans le fond, qu'on dise, dans le fond, que c'est un safe supply pour les usagers de drogue. J'ai l'impression... excusez-moi, c'est comme difficile à expliquer. J'ai l'impression qu'il y a une grande partie de ça qui est faite pour protéger un peu la population en général du COVID, un peu comme avec, je sais pas, le VIH, quand on avait peur que les usagers de drogue attrapent le VIH, puis après ça, que, mettons, les travailleuses du sexe contaminent les gentils messieurs qui allaient voir les prostituées. On dirait que c'est juste quand ça va menacer un peu là, la totalité de la population, j'ai l'impression qu'ils se sont décidés de faire quelque chose comme que... en réalisant, là, dans le fond, que les personnes qui consomment des drogues pouvaient potentiellement attraper le COVID, puis qu'il y était, les instances de santé publique, ben, ils ont de la misère à les faire rester chez eux. Fait qu'à ce moment-là, qu'ils se sont dit un peu comme « Ah, ben, on va, peut-être en faisant du safe supply, ça va les empêcher, dans le fond, d'attraper le COVID, ça va leur permettre de respecter les distances sécuritaires, tout ça, puis ça va protéger, dans le fond, toutes les gentilles personnes qui ne sont pas les usagers de drogue d'attraper le COVID, ce qui est un peu hypocrite, moi, je trouve. Ensuite aussi, là, dans cette perspective-là, les gens, en tout cas à ma connaissance, puis moi aussi, les gens que je connais qui ont du safe supply, ils doivent aller à la pharmacie à tous les jours. Donc, tu sais, parlez-moi de social distancing ou de ne pas attraper le COVID, mais ça ne fait aucun sens. Tu sais, j'ai mes privilèges depuis 3-4 ans. J'avais juste besoin d'aller à la pharmacie une fois par semaine. Puis maintenant, depuis que j'ai le Safe Supply, il faut que j'y aille à tous les jours parce que c'est l'approvisionnement sécuritaire. C'est un peu, c'est ça la règle. Je ne sais pas trop c'est quoi la justification, là. Mais ça fait aucun sens. Là. Je m'expose beaucoup plus à la COVID-19, considérant en plus que ma pharmacie qui sert les TAO, elle les sert d'une porte arrière, qu'il n'y a pas de purelle, qu'on n'a pas besoin de mettre de masque, puis que rien n'est jamais lavé. Donc, ça ne fait pas vraiment de sens à mon avis. Sinon, aussi, je voulais parler un peu de l'accessibilité du Safe Supply. Personnellement, moi, mon expérience a été un peu difficile là, au niveau financier. Durant, dans le fond, du mois de mars jusqu'à maintenant, dans le fond, mon Safe Supply me coûtait 350 $ parce que je suis sur des assurances privées. On s'entend que c'est pas accessible. C'est sûr, ça reste gratuit, là, dans le fond, pour toutes les personnes qui sont sur l'aide sociale. Mais je pense qu'un approvisionnement sécuritaire, là, dans le fond, on devrait clairement s'arranger pour que ce soit accessible pour tout le monde, peu importe si on arrive avec une assurance privée ou peu importe. Dans le fond, là, ce qui m'amène un peu au point où pourquoi j'ai décidé de rester anonyme, là, dans le fond, considérant le prix que ça me coûtait, puis considérant aussi que c'est pas ma substance de choix. Dans le fond, l'hydromorphone, c'est pas tant une substance qui me donne du plaisir, mettons, puis que, dans le fond, les substances là, les substances qui m'intéresseraient, elles ne sont pas accessibles. Dans le fond, c'est ce qui m'a amené beaucoup à revendre ou à échanger mes traitements, mon Safe Supply. Dans le fond, moi, ça a été la manière un peu là, de rembourser les coûts associés à mon Safe Supply, puis d'accéder à ma substance de choix, dans le fond. Donc, c'est sûr, après ça, ça ne couvre pas un peu là, le côté sécurité niveau substance. Si je le revends, je ne m'assure pas, là, dans le fond, un approvisionnement qui est sécuritaire. Mais entre comme ça ou ne pas vraiment les consommer, moi, je trouve que ça réduit vraiment quand même certains risques de mon côté là, de pouvoir, là, dans le fond, avoir plus de sens dans ses finances, tu sais, puis c'est ça, là, de pouvoir les vendre, puis de faire un peu de sous de poche, puis tout ça, ça assure quand même une certaine stabilité, puis une certaine sécurité, non, qui est pas reliée à la santé, mais qui a quand même rapport à mes conditions de vie. Sinon aussi, dans le contexte, en ce moment, Montréal, là, vraiment un contexte où est-ce que le fentanyl commence à arriver. Ça fait pas longtemps que le fentanyl est sur place, puis on en a de plus en plus. Fait que je trouve que ça montre vraiment là, que Montréal doit comme step up son game, comme on dit, parce que ça n'a pas de sens. Il y a certains gens, tu sais, que l'hydromorphone, ça leur convient, mais considérant les doses qu'ils prescrivent, qui sont très, très basses, puis la tolérance des gens qui monte en ce moment avec le fentanyl, ça sera juste pas soutenable, même pas à long terme, à moyen terme, ça sera pas soutenable. Puis pour les stimulants aussi, là, à Québec, au Québec ou à Montréal, en tout cas, on doit vraiment, je pense, changer les choses. Personnellement, moi, je me suis fait proposer des médicaments pour le traitement de l'ADHD, là, le traitement du déficit d'attention. Je ne sais plus exactement c'est quoi. Je pense que c'était peut-être du méthylphénidate que je m'étais fait proposer ou une sorte d'amphétamine. Mais bref, c'était des médicaments qui étaient dangereux à s'injecter, donc qui ne s'injectaient pas, puis qu'on pouvait seulement gober une fois par jour. Donc, je vois aucunement comment ça, c'est un safe supply. C'est peut-être un TAO, c'est peut-être là un traitement de substitution. Si on les prend une fois par jour, puis on les prend oralement, puis ça donne comme pas vraiment d'euphorie, puis c'est juste supposé enlever les cravings, mais je trouvais ça quand même un peu insultant de me faire proposer ça comme un safe supply. C'est ça, tu sais, puis dans le fond, toutes ces substances-là auxquelles on pourrait avoir accès, qui rempliraient nos besoins en matière de substances de choix, elles existent. Tu sais, on sait que, là, que la diacétylmorphine est servie à Vancouver. Tout ce qu'on entend là, après comme excuse, c'est que c'est pas produit localement, c'est pas produit au Canada. Sincèrement, qu'est-ce que ça change? Tu sais, on peut quand même... Il pourrait quand même la donner. On peut tous passer par voyons, des documents d'accès à des médications spéciales. Moi, ça va me faire plaisir de remplir 3 heures de papier si je pourrais avoir de l'héroïne au final. Même chose pour la cocaïne aussi. Il y a un spray nasal de cocaïne qui vient d'être approuvé aux États-Unis. Fait que la même chose aussi, là, il faut passer par... s'il faut défoncer des portes pour y avoir accès, moi, ça va me faire plaisir, mais tant qu'on peut avoir la substance qui nous intéresse, parce que pour le moment, je pense sincèrement que c'est un peu comme insultant rendu là de se faire offrir comme... Je suis la personne qui a le plus de dilos que je connais. Tout le monde qui a un safe supply, ils ont genre 4 dilos 8. Comment tu peux avoir... de l'euphorie avec 4 dilos 8 quand tu consommes genre un demi-gramme d'héros par jour, ça fait aucun sens. Puis voilà, finalement, là, si je parle un peu de ce qui m'intéresserait en termes d'approvisionnement sécuritaire, là, mais si je le rêvais dans le fond, là, comme qui m'intéresserait, c'est sûr que moi, ça serait aucunement du ressort de médecin, ça serait aucunement du ressort de pharmacien. Ça aussi, là, je trouve ça assez insultant de se faire dire qu'aller chez le pharmacien à chaque jour, ça nous aide à être organisés ou je sais pas trop, là, à réintégrer la normalité dans notre vie ou avoir un horaire. Qu'est-ce que le pharmacien amène d'intéressant ou de pertinent à ma vie? Absolument rien. Le pharmacien, il me dit bonjour, bye. C'est aucunement un type de rencontre qui est nourrissant ou qui peut me permettre de me sentir mieux. Fait que sincèrement, ça serait la première chose que je débarquerais. Pas besoin d'aller voir le pharmacien à chaque jour. Ensuite aussi, là, je pense que le médical n'a pas grand-chose, à mon sens, à y avoir. J'ai peur, en fait, qu'on se fasse prendre dans une espèce de raccourci légitime qu'on a voulu prendre. T'sais, on ne peut pas décriminaliser les drogues demain. Donc, en voyant les gens décéder si vite, ça fait du sens de demander au corps médical, dans le fond, là, de prescrire un safe supply, puis c'est ça, de demander de nous aider avec l'approvisionnement sécuritaire, parce que légalement, c'est eux qui peuvent le plus rapidement, dans le fond, nous permettre d'avoir accès à ça. C'est juste que je me demande, à long terme, est-ce qu'on se tire dans le pied? Est-ce qu'on va pas être un peu comme pogné avec eux? Justin Trudeau, là, il y a 2 semaines, je pense, il a littéralement dit quelque chose du genre, il a dit que il était pour le safe supply parce que ça lui permettait de ne pas toucher à la décriminalisation. Fait que c'est juste, je pense que c'est vraiment important de se rappeler que ultimement, le safe supply, on le veut pas dans les pattes des médecins, puis on le veut pas dans les pattes du médical. Parce que je pense que ça n'a juste pas d'affaires là à long terme. Moi, je pense que ça devrait être, les coops, ça devrait être les OBNL, en fait, qui devraient s'occuper de ça. En termes de santé, moi, je trouve que ça fait aucun sens qu'on mettre notre santé, là, dans le fond, entre les mains des personnes qui sont là pour faire du profit, surtout si on parle, en fait, après de quelque chose qui est là pour l'euphorie ou pour, tu sais, comme pour de type récréatif aussi. Si quelqu'un est là pour faire du profit, moi, je pense que ça fait aucun sens. Donc, pour moi, la seule façon d'y aller, ça serait par les OBNL ou par les coops. Puis, dans le fond, c'est ça vraiment, que ça soit géré de pair à pair. Après ça, là, moi aussi, tu sais, je sais pas comment dire, on parle souvent comme une espèce de dichotomie, là, substance pharmaceutique, substance non pharmaceutique. Pour moi, tant que c'est testé, tant qu'on connaît le pourcentage, moi, je préfère beaucoup plus encourager, je sais pas, des fermiers, genre en Amérique du Sud ou au Moyen-Orient. Je vois pas pourquoi ça pourrait pas se faire de cette manière-là non plus. Fait que j'imagine, moi, ce que j'ai en tête, là, dans le fond, qui conviendrait le mieux à mes besoins, ça serait peut-être plus un buyer's club. Puis évidemment, qui offrirait là, toutes les substances dont les gens ont besoin, là, donc pas seulement l'hydromorphone. Ouais, c'est ça. Je pense que mon souhait le plus grand, là, ça serait vraiment qu'on n'oublie pas que dans le fond, il faut sortir ça des mains des médecins. Parce que je pense que ça n'a juste pas d'affaire là. Sinon, ben, je pense que j'ai fait le tour. Puis s'il y a des questions, allez-y.
Thanks, Lou. I regret that I don't speak French because it took me till the English translation said that you were done. I'm just wanting to check in. Ben, did you have any questions for Lou? If you don't, that's okay. I just wanted to check.
Well, I actually just wrote a comment about the whole, and I see some people, agree with it. That, yeah, going to the pharmacy every day totally sucks, and it feels like an intrusion, on our lives, and it's patronizing, and exactly what my comment says. What we have to do is give people what they need, give people something that works. Like, how can you expect to have an effective program when the system that you provided them, and in many cases in the case of methadone, for me, the drugs that you're giving them is not working, and then you expect them to come every day, and intrude on their lives. Like, it's just destined to fail. And on top of that, when you go in there, you feel awkward, you feel stigmatized, you're treated like crap, you're sitting in there for 30 minutes. Yeah, it totally sucks. So, that really kind of stuck with me. Yeah, Lou, great presentation. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm wondering, like, anything else would be more relevant than sending us to the pharmacy every day if, like, the excuse is to help us get reorganized or, like, help us have a schedule. I don't know, send me to yoga classes, send me to draw mandalas with, like, people in my neighborhood, send me, like, to cook some things for, like, my neighbors, whatever. But, like, what's the point of the pharmacy? The pharmacist doesn't give a shit about me. He actually judges me. So, like, I don't know.
I have a question, Lou, for you, which I've actually asked you before, but I think the answer is spectacular. Is the cost of your medications that you pick up, is the cost of your safe supply that you pick up at the pharmacy more or less expensive than if you just bought from the unregulated market?
It's less expensive. It's less expensive a little bit. Yeah.
It's less expensive.
Still, yeah, but still, like, I work in the OBNL community. Is that a word in English? Yeah. So, like, my salary obviously is not very high. So for me, that's a very big hole in my budget. Like, buying drugs, buying myself safe supply, there's nothing else after that.
That seems like a really huge access issue. I want to hand it back to the panelists and just check in to see if there's anything that they want to add or that they want to connect on with the rest of the folks here today.
You know, I just wanted to say that I'm completely kind of touched by some of the you know, questions and comments that I've seen from like all the people who've contributed, and yeah, so many people, so many of us are, you know, are going through so many, you know, unique but also common situations, and I really hope that all of us just really push, you know, if anyone wants, I can provide that advocacy package that I was given. I think for everyone in Ontario, it's certainly relevant, but it also has, I think, some letters from some federal ministers or something like that. And it might even at the very least just be a good read, but at the most, it could also be something that people can show their doctors and show them, hey, you know, this is legal. This is, you can do this. You're not going to get in trouble. And get out there and show it to your family doctor, or call up new doctors, email it to the doctors, and really hopefully we can start changing people's minds and get some people also on safe supply. So I guess, is there a way, Shay, for me to post a document here? So I just in the chat section?
Yep.
I'll go ahead and do that then. Okay.
I believe so anyways. The Ben, that resource is made in Ontario?
It's
or is it the one from
provided
Canadian
to it by Regent Park? It's certainly relevant for Ontario. I will go through it and double check, but certainly I don't see any harm with everyone having it, and there's certainly some stuff in there that would be relevant to all of Canada. So
absolutely. I know that in the resources, and there's like, I don't know, 39 of them, there is some advocacy tools around working with your doctor. So I'm not sure if it's the same thing. And if it's not, we'll just add the one you're talking about, Ben. So that's great. I know that the Canadian Association of Safe Supply has written something. Steve, your question in the chat, for sure, I can send that to you. That's not a problem at all. And we'll add there's been 2 petitions. So one from Ontario, that's by the Municipal Drug Strategies Coordinators. So if you live in Ontario, and then there's one for the Yukon as well. The other resource that Alex put in, which was a journal article, we will also put in. Lou, I want to hand off to you. Any thoughts, anything you missed, anything you wanted to connect on?
What do you mean? Like,
Is
if
there
I
anything
have
else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I didn't think I would see like safe supply a few years ago. So I hope I'm mistaken too about like co-ops or buyers club, and that like I'll see them very soon.
Indeed. So I want to just check with Aaron or Julie Soleil. We still have some time for a question. Is there a question there? I know actually we talked about, perhaps we ask Lou the same question we asked Ben, unless you had a thought. Yes, no, okay. So Lou, this is the question, and I think you've hit on some of this, but it's got some pieces to it you might want to connect on. Within the limits of the current medical model, knowing we need to move past this, what does an ideal safer supply program look for you? So drugs offered, modes of consumption, delivery, locations, people providing services. So I know you've talked about NGOs, but what else do you think?
Well, obviously there would be all the substances people would want. I don't know why we have like this. I don't know why we care so much about like the equivalent, pharmaceutical equivalent of the street drug. Why can't we have just like the drug we use? So maybe that would be one thing. You know, I'd like the drug I use, and I'll maybe I can then have like support to use it safely. But if it's not the drug I use, and if it's not the drug I want, I will not use it, and I will not be safe. So for me, it has no point. So no, I don't know, no methylphenidate or dexedrine or whatever for like crack cocaine or injected cocaine, except if that's what the person wants. Else for me, it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, like there should be access to IV medication. Like right now, I don't know why we don't have access to IV hydromorphone. Doesn't make any sense. There's filling in the Dilaudid, which is bad for veins, and the doctors know it. They even tell us, like when we get it prescribed, they don't even give wheel filters. They filter like tiny particles, which the usual filters we give in harm reduction kits are there. We don't have that. So yeah, just why not go with the IV, because it exists. Maybe it's very expensive, maybe it's too expensive for junkies, but like whatever, we need that. Also, like finding some way to reestablish the balance between like the doctor and the user. So like feeling that our safe supply is kind of guaranteed, that it's not a 3-month thing during whatever thing is happening, or that it's not just for your TAO to go up and then you'll feel better and then we take off your safe supply. So yeah, having the feeling that even if we need our safe supply dose to go up because I don't know, our tolerance, maybe it went up, or maybe for a weekend we want to have like more fun and we want to get wasted. So like, yeah, feeling we're listened to, and that we're not always like a potential OD. I feel sometimes that, like, I don't know, my doctor doesn't see who I am. I'm just like a potential OD. Everything I say, like everything I ask, it's like, okay, is this like an OD risk? I might lose my license for this or whatever. So like, I feel like choices or in Quebec too, like the doctor association, or however is the term, I feel like it's very strong too. Maybe that's why. So like, I always feel like their decision has to be, I understand why their decision has to be backed, but sometimes, you know, someone's gotta step up and do the right thing. So yeah, and we're talking about, yeah, the best way to deliver safe supply. I'd like to have, you know, go once a month at the pharmacy or something like that, or just not going to the pharmacy, actually maybe going to my local harm reduction organism, or go to the SIS. That would like make much more sense. And I'd feel too that the people working there, they would probably be much more able to answer my questions. Yeah, I feel sometimes the pharmacists are a little bit clueless too with like what I take. On my prescription, when I first got my my safe supply, it was written safe supply, and like the pharmacists were very confused. They all wrote for pain on my bottle, and they were like, hey, we're receiving these tons of prescriptions since last week. It's written safe supply. What is that? So yeah, maybe going like to the local harm reduction organism would be, I'd feel better. And I already have like a connection with these people. So like, if I have question, if whatever happens, I feel I'd feel safe to talk over there. Also, like, I don't know if I ever need help with I don't know, finding an apartment, whatever I could need, like I'd be to the right place. You know, when I'm at the pharmacy, I'm at the right place to buy a toothbrush, but I don't feel like how it has any relevance to like to the safe supply and how it's supposed to like help me get better.
So I had some good news, which is when I was looking through the registrations earlier this morning, there's actually a College of Pharmacies who is attending today. So that gives me hope. But I won't out them because I don't want everybody to be excited for that province. But it's probably not the province you thought it was. Just going to tell you that. I'm going to do a little bit of wrap up. So a couple promises. So Ben and Lou, I promised to send you a transcript of the chat because people have been super lovely to you and it's all very engaging. So you may not have seen that. And I would rather you be able to see that and sort of just appreciate how much we all have really appreciated the greatness of your presentations. And I think we could probably go on forever. Exciting pieces. People talked about wanting to engage or connect related to drug sellers, doing that, thinking about that, how to do that. Is it a Stimulus Connect? Is it a webinar? Is it a piece of research? Is it just like a really cool town hall meeting? Was already on our list of things because as you know, they're a key group of people involved in drug policy and rarely people talk to them. And we should figure out how to do that so they won't get arrested. The engagement today was so amazing. We are certainly spending a lot of time online these days. So thank you for spending these 2 hours with us. I will follow up with an email to all the people who registered with a link to the website that will have the video of this and all the resources. We'll add the new resources that were identified today, along with the most important evaluation for the Stimulus Connect. So that's another opportunity to give feedback to Ben and Lou a little bit after you've done this. So it'll probably come out early next week. And it also helps us at Stimulus figure out how to do this better or quit doing the things we should never do again. Thanks again to the panelists. Thanks to Sophie. Sophie is always so great. And of course, she probably really loves we start talking about pharmaceutical names by brand name. Thanks, Sophie, for all of your work. Thanks to Erin for wrangling and Julie Soleil for wrangling all of the background. As you may have noticed, that's my alarm telling me it's 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes before we stop. Big thanks to all of those behind the scenes, including AIDQ, Capud, and CDPC. Nat from the CDPC office has been live tweeting. So if you actually just put in #Stimulus Connect into a web browser, you'll actually see some of the comments. And so thanks to Nat for doing that. I know he's here today. There's lots of different opportunities. I hope everybody has a lovely day and keeps out of trouble. And if you're going to make sure you hang out with friends, use apps if you want to, make sure you do what you can to try and prevent overdose. Thanks to all the folks who work in this area who are trying to be better at their job. I appreciate that you're all here. Those of us who are on the panel are going to stay for a couple minutes, but for the rest of you, thanks and have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Lou, if you can stay, that would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.